Hey everyone, it's David Chen. The Oscar nominations for films that came out in 2021 were announced this morning. Let's talk about them. In this video, I'm going to share overall thoughts, going to share some things that I really appreciated about the nominations, some things that I didn't appreciate so much, and a few other cool things. So this will be a pretty casual video, but let's go through it, okay? Overall, I thought this is a strong set of nominees. There's very few decisions that made me feel like, oh, this is not right, or they should have chosen someone else. Every single one of these movies is pretty good, and I think the performances are strong, the craft is really strong. So I think they did a good job choosing movies that people will appreciate, but they didn't really do a good job of choosing movies that people have seen a lot. And I think that continues to be an issue with the Academy Awards is the taste of the Academy Award members and the taste of the American public continue to drift further and further apart. I think it's completely fine because it doesn't need to be the job of film critics or Academy members or whoever else is in the Academy to mirror the taste of the American public. But I do think it's going to make for a very boring and drab broadcast unless they figure out a way to mix it up, which they haven't really done for the last few decades. But putting that aside, let's talk about some of my favorite elements of these nominees. First of all, I think the big surprise here is Drive My Car. Drive My Car is a 3-hour Japanese film about grief that very few people in the United States have seen because it hasn't been widely available yet. And it was nominated in 4 major categories, including Best Picture and Best Director. So the fact that this movie is in this many categories and has this level of high visibility is pretty incredible when you think about it. This is a movie that very few people had actually even heard of 2 months ago and has now been propelled to a main spot on one of the biggest award ceremonies in the world. And I'm a huge fan of this movie. I think it's very well deserved that it's gotten these nominations. I don't know if it's going to win, but the fact that people are talking about it and that it's gotten this many nominations means more people are going to see it, and I think that's great. So the movie's Drive My Car. Check it out when it hits video on demand. Another movie that I thought was really worthy of its nominations was the movie Flee. Flee was nominated in 3 categories: Best International Feature, Best Animated Feature, as well as Best Documentary. I think it may end up splitting the vote. I hope it wins at least one of those categories. Of the 3, I would love for it to win Best Documentary. I think Flee is a really powerful story about what it's like to be a refugee, to be fleeing your country of origin, and I think it deserves to be seen by more people. It's available right now on video on demand, but the movie's Flee, and I think it did pretty well today, and I'm really happy about that. A couple of other nominations I want to shout out. Ariana DeBose was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for her turn in West Side Story. She's amazing. She's going to be a star. I can't wait till she's a household name, and I think this nomination is going to get her one step closer to it. Check her out in West Side Story. She is so good. Speaking of Best Supporting Actress, I thought Jessie Buckley getting a nomination for her performance in The Lost Daughter is awesome. Jessie Buckley, super talented, loved her in movies like I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and I think she deserves all the praise that's coming to her. Finally, one of my favorite films of 2021 didn't do too well at the box office, but did pick up a couple nominations today, including for Best Picture. It's Nightmare Alley. I just watched this movie recently. I really loved it. It's streaming right now on Hulu and HBO Max. If you haven't had a chance yet, do check it out. But was really happy to see Nightmare Alley get shouted out today during the nominations. Now, before I talk about stuff that I wasn't so happy about, I do just want to say, hey, my things that I was happy about and wasn't happy about are going to be different than yours. I would love to hear what you were thrilled by, what you weren't thrilled by. Make sure you leave a comment below. I'm happy to check it out. But yeah, people are going to have different opinions. Some people really happy about Kristen Stewart getting a nomination. I wasn't as much of a fan of her performance in that movie. You know, everyone's different, but share with me your thoughts. That's what I want to hear. Okay, let's get to things I was disappointed by. Dune was one of my favorite films of 2021, and that movie picked up 10 nominations today, but did not get a nomination for Best Director for Denis Villeneuve. Huge disappointment. I guess the movie just directed itself then. No, I'm just joking, but kind of a bummer, and I really hope that the movie gets recognized because I do think it's an achievement. That said, I also can see the complaint that it's only half a movie. So it will get another opportunity for Denis to pick up some nominations when Dune Part 2 comes out. In the last segment, I talked about Ariana DeBose in West Side Story. I was disappointed that Mike Feist didn't get nominated for his performance in West Side Story. He was just a revelation in that film. I don't think I'd ever seen him in a movie before, but I was just so impressed by his look, his intensity, his performance, and it's a bummer that he wasn't recognized during the nominations. Finally, I do want to call out this actual graphic that Rotten Tomatoes published this morning when the nominees were announced. You can see one of these movies doesn't quite belong, and that movie is Don't Look Up. And I think that Don't Look Up is a movie I really did not care for when it came out last year. I found it to be smug and overbearing and extremely pleased with itself in a way that was not justified. So I was a little bit bummed that Don't Look Up got a Best Picture nomination. That said, it's some people's favorite film of 2021. So, you know, different strokes for different folks. But I think the critics agree Don't Look Up is the one that doesn't belong there. All right, a couple of other random odds and ends from the nominations this year. First of all, it's cool that there were 2 couples nominated. Penelope Cruz for Parallel Mothers and Javier Bardem for Being the Ricardos. And also Jesse Plemons and Kirsten Dunst for Power of the Dog. 2 couples nominated in 4 separate categories. A lot of talent in those 2 households, and I think those nominations were richly deserved. Speaking of cool category things, Jane Campion and Steven Spielberg were both nominated for Best Director, Jane Campion for Power of the Dog, and Steven Spielberg for West Side Story. This is actually the second time they're going up against each other. The last time was when Schindler's List and The Piano came out decades ago, and they're going up against each other again. And I actually think Jane Campion may have a chance of winning this time. Power of the Dog is a really strong favorite. It's also a great movie, one of my favorites of 2021. So check out both West Side Story and Power of the Dog, but it's cool to see both Jane Campion and Steven Spielberg in the Best Director category. On that note, there are a couple of interesting records set this year. Steven Spielberg became a director who was nominated across 6 different decades for the first time. And also Kenneth Branagh, I think one of the first people to ever be nominated in 6 different categories. And again, both of those very well deserved, both very talented gentlemen. Regardless of whether they win or not, these are obviously signs that they're both hugely accomplished. As for who's going to win this thing, I have no idea. If I had to guess, probably Don't Look Up. I think it'll be this year's Green Book and Crash. It's a movie that Oscar voters will vote for and feel good about themselves. But ultimately, I think it's one of the worst movies, not only of this list, but of the past year. But you know, at the end of the day, we all know that the movies that win the Oscars aren't necessarily the ones that stand the test of time. So anyway, those are my quick thoughts and opinions on the Oscars this year. Curious what you all felt. Make sure you hit me up in the comments below. And I want to give a big shout out to all my patrons at patreon.com/DaveChen for making my videos possible. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, hit like and subscribe. Hit that bell icon to get notified whenever I publish a new one. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.